to it. Something I learned this morning is that when it's done, all of you will get a copy of it'll download to my Google Drive and share it with all of you, so you'll have access to it. Um, Please don't share that out to everybody yet. Again, accountability, funding, and all that stuff. We got to kind of protect this for a little bit, and then mid-June, it's a free for all. So let's see. But thank you guys again. If this is awful and terrible, please let me know. If it's good, just don't say anything. That's totally fine too. Here comes Christy, Randy.
Okay.
I wonder if I can pin both of you. Let's find out. So let's see. Boom. There's Christy. She is pinned. Now let's see if I can pin Randy. All right, I have both Randy and nope, it won't let me. So I guess what we'll do is unpin you guys, and everybody else will be muted. So as you guys talk, it'll bounce back and forth.
Okay, that's cool.
All right. So without any further ado, here is Randy Young. And Randy, I will let you introduce yourself and do all that fun stuff. And I'm going to bow out. And if anybody needs anything, put it in the chat and we will get going. Thank you guys for all being here.
Awesome. Let me make sure that I can get to the chat thing here myself so that I can see that. Yeah, good morning, everybody, and thanks for being here. Christy and I teach at Thomas County Central High School. I'm Randy Young, by the way. I'll be entering my 26th year, I believe, of teaching here at Thomas County Central. I've been at one school the entire time. Really an amazing development of our program through the years, and we've been able to do some really cool things for our kids, and hopefully going to be able to share some stuff this morning with you that maybe you'll be able to incorporate into what you're doing in your backyard as well. And Christy, if you can come in, I'm going to let you introduce yourself as well. She's the co-teacher in here with me.
Hey guys, I'm Christy Maxwell, and this is my 6th year teaching with Mr. Young. And I guess I'm the future of the program. I don't even know.
Yes.
So, hey.
Yeah, Christy was she was a student in here and went to Georgia Southern and did really, really well over there. And I think God laid a burden on her heart to want to teach. Bless her heart. And she contacted me and asked about the possibility of coming to teach here. And it just so happened that at that point in time, we were trying to find someone hopefully to be able to just hand the thing over to. And Christy is the heir apparent. She's a good one. She's done wonderful work with these kids here, and it's just been a blessing for everybody all the way around. But what we're going to talk about this morning is embedding your kids and your program into your community. This is something we've talked about a couple of times at GACTI. And I think that at least for our program, this has been a huge part of what we are and what we do. Now, I do want to say, and I know that this is going to come up at some point, we have no idea how all of this that we're going to talk about today is going to be affected with next year and these imposing or impending budget cuts and all of this stuff that's being talked about. We have no idea. Now, we've been told that there are going to be some cuts and some changes along the way with some of the things that we're going to talk about, but I think it's important for all of us, and this is a message that our superintendent here has hit home many, many times in conversations that I've had with her. I don't think anybody knows anything definitive at this point. There's just so much that has yet to be decided, and everything that is being said out there is pure speculation. I mean, we as an example, we have area superintendents that have messaged their employees that they may be staring at 20 furlough days next year. That is completely unfounded at this point. That is nothing but conjecture. And there's just everybody's anxious enough and everybody is confused enough that we just don't need adding on to the fire. So what we're going to talk about here and the way we're going to approach this is as if these things are still completely 100% in line and ready to go, just like they have been. And even if next year, by some chance, they aren't what they have been, I have no doubt that before it's over with, when everything turns back around, this will become part of what we're doing and a regular part of who we are as well. To give you a little historical perspective here about our program, since I started working here in 1995, I have made sure that our program has been very visible in the community and in our school system. We have a lot of different things that our kids are a part of. I'm the radio play-by-play guy for the football team, for example, here, and have been since 1986. And one of the things that I always wanted to have with our kids is a very strict involvement with our sports programs, especially football. Now, I know it sounds cheap and cheesy, and some of you guys have heard me say this before, but there are a lot of things that until right now, there are a lot of things that you will see cut and sacrificed along the way, but our football programs in Georgia probably are not going to be one of them. And one of the things we wanted to do was have our kids embedded to the point where the program itself, our football program and our sports programs, were dependent on them in some ways to provide product and provide things that they weren't going to be able to do for themselves. And that if by some chance, again, those types of cuts and things were to come across, it would be something that our kids would be a part of the discussion of that would be protected because of the level of their involvement. So we have kids at every one of our games with several cameras, different positions. We've got a video replay board inside our stadium that we've had since 2006 that has been a part of what we do, and our kids run it. I mean, Christy supervises it. She's kind of the eye in the sky, but the kids are 100% hands-on running every piece of equipment that's done inside that thing. And our school board members, our community members, they see those kids out there doing that stuff. There's no more visible event in South Georgia than our Friday night football games. It just doesn't exist. And we have shirts that our kids wear that identify them as Thomas County Central Broadcasting students. And it's easy for folks to see them and know that's who they are and that's what they're doing. We have community events that our kids are a part of. Our local cable provider here has coverage of our Rose Festival every year in April. And they have a lot of different video elements involved in that, including live coverage of the big parade that we have as part of that Rose Festival. And our kids help them with that. And they wear their shirts and they're identified, again, in very visible circumstances as part of our program. And also school system events. There is not anything that goes on video-wise inside our school system that our kids are not a part of somehow, some way. And kind of let those thoughts plant a seed in the back of your brain for a minute as I head forward. We've also provided a lot of programming for area radio stations, for our cable providers here from day one. And every one of those things that we have provided to our community broadcast entities, our students have had a very central role in. In fact, every Friday night before those football games, the first hour of programming that is broadcast to our entire community and across the world with our tailgate show is student done. The kids are interviewing students from inside the high school. They're interviewing teachers from inside the high school. And it's a good way for us to tap into the popularity of those Friday nights to get kind of a PR machine built up for our school and, again, for our program. There's a lot of things going on inside the schools. Y'all know this, that nobody ever hears anything about. Really, really cool stuff. And this is a way for us to kind of spread the word out there. So we've tried to establish our program as not only a class inside this school, but an entity inside the community, not just the school system. And it has been, I think, a very successful effort along those ways. And over the years, all of our schools in our school system here, we have 5 other schools outside of the high school inside the Thomas County school system, all have developed their own little mini media programs where they have their own little broadcasts that they do in the mornings, news broadcasts with their kids and so forth. And we've hit a spot. I know this will come as a shock to every one of you, and I'm self-incriminating myself here. A lot of the media center specialists are not very tech savvy. And when they would record these announcements to be shown to their schools and so forth, when it came time to edit them and be able to make them look nice, they didn't know what to do. So they were sending these video files over to us here at the high school, or sending them with kids or to kids, and we were having our students edit those programs for the schools. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but it wasn't very efficient and it wasn't very convenient. And we were asking our kids to take time away from what they were doing inside their classroom work, which I mean, they were still students inside our program, to be able to address this stuff that was really, I mean, it was kind of program related, but it was really more school related for the other schools than it was related to anything we were doing. So we kind of set the harrows down in the field and made some grooves to plant some seeds to create some positions inside those schools for our students to work inside the schools as work-based learning students, to be able to assist those media center specialists and the folks who are in charge of doing all those media things, and also really just help anywhere along the way. And that's, I'm gonna let Christy jump in here now, because Christy has been kind of coordinating that the last couple of years, and she can tell you a little bit more specifically what those kids have been doing.
Right. So as Randy said, we now have a student at every single one of our elementary schools up through the middle school. Obviously, those kids all have different tasks depending on which school they're actually at. The kids that are at, our elementary, like primary schools, they're more just tech helpers, if that makes sense. They have a very short morning show, but as far as the details and everything regarding their show, it's very simple for them to put together. So traditionally, it's put together in about one of the 5 days each week. Then after that, they're cutting out apples and helping fix iPads and stuff like that. And then as we go up into schools, obviously the workload for them gets a little heavier. So you get to the 4th and 5th grade school here, and they're chroma keying their show. They're doing the pledge, the lunch menu, and it's all like students, so they can't really say variety and things like that. So it does take a lot of editing of the kids having to go back in and fix their words literally.
They're doing weather, like at the middle school. They do a weather forecast, which is always fun to watch.
Yeah, and so our middle school is probably the most intense, simply because they're actually doing a 5 to 7 minute show each day. That's all student done. The teacher is just giving directions. He's not actually really doing anything besides fixing something if it breaks. So depending on, with work-based learning, kids can start their junior year. So traditionally, we like to have kids in those positions every 2 years just to help with turnover. So we're not having to train every year, different things like that. And obviously, we're putting our best kids in our program in those positions. The kids go through an interview process just like we did for our jobs. And the principals kind of pick the best fit for their school, because in the past, we've had issues with kids and their supervisors, not getting along. And apparently when you're a teenager, that's very dramatic.
Even when you're an adult, that's very dramatic. It can be. Yeah.
So we're just trying to eliminate that aspect of it by allowing the principals to choose who they want. And we also have 4 students who are housed at the high school that work solely with our athletic department.
Well, let me interject real quick in there, because I want to kind of give them a little background on how that happened too. That, if you don't mind, that this to me is one of the things that sprouted from the seeds that were planted and having the kids involved in things like at those football games and the tailgate shows and all the sports oriented things. Of course, social media has evolved to the point now where if you go off to Egypt and play a game, somebody is there with a phone or something, keeping people up to date with what's going on with that particular event. And of course, sports, it doesn't matter if it's tennis or track or what it is, it's still very important for the parents and the kids who are involved in those particular sports. It doesn't have to be the big three: baseball, basketball, and football. So we started brainstorming here with our athletic director about creating what we call sports information director positions. And we have, as Christy mentioned, 4 kids who their job is to follow our sports teams. And that is what they do. They travel with them. When they go to away games, they're right there with them, taking photographs, posting videos on social media, keeping everybody up to date with what's going on. And it is amazing to me how the moms and the dads, and again, here you go again, this is kind of a political game to a certain degree, but the moms and the dads just eat it up. The fact that, again, these kids are there through our department and have a specific task of keeping the community up to date with what's happening with their kids. It's not that they're not a tennis player at that point. They're not a soccer player at that point. They're not a basketball player. That's their kids. And that creates another avenue of buy-in outside the walls of our classroom for the folks in the community. And I'll let Christy again specifically talk about what those kids are doing.
Right. So when we were developing this, we decided that instead of overly emphasizing football, which everyone follows the football team in Thomasville, we wanted to focus on the smaller sports that didn't necessarily get as much coverage because they were all doing really well as well. So we had 4 kids this past year, 2 juniors and 2 seniors. And we made sure to have 2 female and 2 male just for the purpose of traveling to all of the sporting events, because, you know, you can't have a dude on a girl team bus and you can't have a girl on a guy team bus. So okay, so y'all know with work-based learning, you have traditionally 10 hours a week that you can dedicate to your workload. Well, for our kids, we had it modified, I guess, to where they had 10 hours in the classroom, and then they also had up to 10 hours in the, like, for the sporting events and stuff after school. So instead of the 10 hours, they were getting 20 hours a week, potentially. We seldomly got there, except for like spring seasons and stuff like that, where there are 9 sports going on at one time. Yeah. So where was I going with that?
Well, the main thing is that the workload was spread out, and we, as Christy said, and this was a really big deal, trying to make sure that we weren't just pigeonholing ourselves with just guys or just girls, because some of those situations, and I realize that we live in an age that's a little bit different with a lot of that than ever, but still, if they're traveling on a bus with a bunch of guys with the baseball team, it needs to be a guy traveling with them for the most part, and to be able to be supervised. And the beautiful part about that is our coaches bought in 100% with this, and they pretty well just said, look, we're the supervisors here. When those kids get on those buses, you guys are off the hook. If they've got a technical issue or something, of course, they're going to have to call you and contact you, because we're not going to be able to help with that. But as far as being able to keep an eye on them and make sure that they're where they're supposed to be and doing what they're doing, they were 100% all in.
Right. So the coaches, you know, would even pay for the kids' food, different things like that, to make sure that they were taken care of and not having to spend any of their personal money out of their pockets too. And so those positions, while the 4 school positions were paid solely through our school system, those positions were paid through our athletic department's budget. So Sam went ahead, Sam's our athletic director, he went ahead and planned to make sure that he had enough money set aside for these students to potentially earn up to 20 hours a week working. And they get paid, I think, $9 an hour. So it's not too bad for a 16, 17-year-old.
Yep. And from our standpoint, those kids, when they had an event to cover, the athletic department purchased some equipment that they would use for specifically for different sports. But we were happy for them to use some of our equipment as well. I mean, again, this is a legitimate field experience for these kids that is really unique. And one of the things that I want to add, at least as far as the SID aspect is concerned, we have all of our advanced students every year create a what we call a college portfolio, where they are creating a resume of the stuff that they've done. They put together a cover letter that details all of the things that they've done inside our class and outside our class. And they write colleges. And we don't just write just Georgia Southern University. We write the department heads for areas that they're interested in. It doesn't have to be broadcast oriented. It can be anything, because good work ethic is good work ethic, and it reflects in the stuff that they do inside this class. It doesn't have to be a nursing project for a nursing director to see that this kid's able to produce and do good work. And for these kids to be able to put on their resumes and in their experiences that they were a sports information director with the high school, and then detailing what all that entailed, that has been a very interesting thing to see the reaction from the colleges, because they just don't hear of that sort of thing going on inside a high school. And the questions that get asked about that is like, wait, how did y'all do that? And it really has been a collaborative effort. Not only, I mean, Christy's been pretty much the mastermind behind figuring out where the kids were going and when they were going and so forth. But the support from inside the schools has been wonderful, and especially there from our athletic director, Sam Holland, who has seen over and over and over and over again these kids and their involvement and how they conduct themselves whenever they are representing our program. That's something I didn't mention earlier. Whenever we go out into the community and do events, of course, we're fairly selective about how we do that. The football games for us is really their test lab for a lot of the kids, for us to weed them out. We have a situation there that, again, where everybody's enclosed in one area at our stadium. They don't have to travel. We use all like our JV games and ninth grade games and middle school games that are played at our stadium to observe like our first year kids that have just entered our program that we really don't know that much about, to see what they're about, whether they're going to take instructions well, whether they're going to ask questions. If they've got a problem, are they going to just freak out? Or are they going to go seek somebody out that can actually help them? It's a chance for us to evaluate them in a real life environment that is a lot less pressure than what we have like on our Friday nights with the varsity games. I mean, we will have games on Friday nights where we'll have 8,000 to 9,000 people inside that stadium. And for a high school kid, that's a huge deal. Well, heck, for an adult, that's a huge deal. You got 18,000 eyes sitting there watching you. Well, for a JV game or a middle school game, you may have a couple of hundred people there. But if you're a ninth grade student or a 10th grade student that's never been in a live situation, that's pretty important. And Christy and I have found, and if you guys do the same thing, you'll find too, there are certain kids that in the classroom might not be the sharpest tool in the shed, but when they get out there in that live environment, the light bulb comes on, and you find a way to work with that kid, because that becomes their thing. That becomes where they are hanging their hat. And I can't tell you over the years how many of those type kids that on the academic side with the book work and the testing and all the stuff that's got to be done inside the classroom. I cannot tell you how many kids over the years I've had tell me personally, if I had not had that, I would not have come to school. And to know that means that much to them, heck yeah, we're going to find a way to make that work for that kid. We've got a couple right now who kind of fit into that mold, who will be, I think, as far as our leaders, boots on the ground for the program next year. A couple of them are that type of kid. Now, again, don't ask them to sit down and take a written test and start defining, condenser microphones and charge couple devices and all that stuff. They know what they are. But if you got an event where you need a camera set up and running and everything operational in a minute and a half, 2 minutes or so, those kids can do it. And to me, again, that's another part of what we're doing.
And to go off of that for a second with you guys, one thing that I tried to implement, I don't know how well he was doing this before I got here, but if a kid wasn't doing what they needed to be doing in our class, they were not doing the fun stuff, is what I call it. So I monitor their grades, and if their grade slips below an 85, they're not on my crew, and they know that. So it keeps them motivated to keep doing work in our class instead of just being like, well, I'm going to go to the game on Friday, even though they have a 40 participation grade.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to keep the incentive there by making them work in our class.
Yeah, I'm glad she said that, because I didn't say that. The motivation for them to be a part of those crews and be a part of these things we're talking about, that becomes the carrot in front of them for the classroom. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to be a straight A student. That doesn't mean that they're going to be, again, the kid that everybody else is going to be going to review with for tests and so forth. But they're going to keep their nose to the grindstone, because they know that if they fall below a certain level in that classroom, then they're not going to be a part of those things on those Friday nights and so forth. And that's it. It's too important for them. It means too much for them personally to not do that. You guys got any questions or anything at this point? I know we've been talking for about 30 straight minutes or so, and I've got a couple of other things I wanted to go over, but if there's any questions at this point, I wanted to see if anybody had anything. I guess y'all can type them on the chat if you want to. Here we go. Is that like our equipment supplement, or is that like the personal supplement? Well, personal supplement. Christy's on a half extended day. I'm on extended day, and there's some PR supplement stuff that I've been able to tap into over the years as well. And I
get a whopping $1,000 at our video board.
But let me say this: for many years, there was no supplement. It was me by myself. I mean, I was able at times to have a parapro in here helping, quote unquote, helping.
Right.
But Christy is really the first legit teacher that has been a part of what we're doing in here. And I can tell you again, the blessing she has been here cannot be measured. And let's say this too. The school system thinks enough of what is going on here for there to be 2 teachers inside this program. And I understand that's unusual within itself. Our numbers
are also 3,500 square feet. So keep that in perspective.
Yeah, we've got a huge lab here that's almost impossible for one person to keep an eye on. So, I mean, it's a 2-person slot, but instead of Christy just being somebody who's another set of eyes just to watch what's happening, she's really taken the ball and run with it. And again, the younger folks like Christy, again, technology wise, I'm drowning.
He sure is. So the school pays only 4 students through work-based learning. The rest of the kids get service learning hours. So again, 20 hours a week are work-based learning students, which we only have 4. For athletics, get paid $9 an hour to film and upload to social media.
And also, and Jason, let me tag on top of that. Our students get letter jackets if they work, and we don't set a number of hours. We don't set you got to do this and you got to do that, because I'm afraid once they get to that number of hours, they're going to hoist the white flag and walk off at that point. We don't want to do that. But if they are identified as leaders in our program by the students in the program and by Christy and I, then we suggest them for letter jackets to the athletic department. And the athletic department now purchases them letter jackets to reward them for their service, which is extremely cool. Oh, I know.
Yeah, we were there too for a few years.
Yeah.
And right now we're just now getting regrowth again. I had record low numbers of kids volunteering 2 years ago. I wasn't even able to fill every single spot, and that has never happened before.
Yeah.
So I definitely understand that.
Well, and Sabrina, let me throw in here what we were talking about a minute ago. I would recommend to you, and I don't know if you're doing this or not, but that career portfolio thing or the college portfolio thing that your advanced level students could do. This is something very unusual when they have actual hands-on experience. Every college and university has crews of students that are videotaping stuff for their athletic departments. And I'll use an example from a few years back. We had one young man who came through here who ended up running the University of Georgia's student-produced video programs, and he ended up on a full-time scholarship at the University of Georgia. He followed not only their football team, but their basketball and baseball team through 2 separate seasons. Everything that the players got, from Nike windsuits to shoes to watches to bowl rings, he got. It was a paid position. He not only got to go and follow them around, but before he left there, he was being paid $35 an hour to edit. So the doors it can open for them, if they'll do it, it really can be unprecedented for them. It's an opportunity that they're not going to be able to create any other way, because they're creating a portfolio of their work. They're not just videotaping a game. Their camera shots, their camera work, all the stuff that they're doing with their editing, the name graphics, all the things that they do when they edit those things, that reflects on them, not on the players. So it really creates a very, very unique opportunity for them to sell themselves in a way that most high school kids just can't do.
And as far as the work-based learning with outside of the school day, we had to have that specifically approved by the board. And then our work-based learning coordinator went forth to get permission from, I guess, the work-based learning chair at the DOE. I'm not entirely sure if that even exists. But as far as buy-in goes, I've learned that my attitude has a lot to do with it. So if I'm up there having a good time, not stressed out and hollering at kids, traditionally they want to continue doing it. But if not, they're a little scared of me after that point.
Well, and let me say too that, Lewis, the community event aspect of this thing, like those football games on Friday nights, they are now not just an observer to those things. They are right in the middle of what's going on. They are part of the events. I mean, it literally revolves around them. And one of the things that I have been most proud of over the years, and Christy will back me up on this, is the majority of our crews that work those games on Friday nights are girls. Mm-hmm. The vast majority of them. Some of them could not tell you. Let's put it this way. Our top camera person from last year, Katie Markham, mm-hmm. she ran cameras, as good as anybody we've got. I mean, just really, just a gift with running. After our first game last year, she came to me and asked to explain to her the difference between a first down and a touchdown. Now, for her to be able to be a part of an event with 5,000-6,000 people there, and she's very introverted, there's a sense of pride there for her. Even though she has no clue about the game, she knows that there's something bigger going on there than her. And she's a part of that. And it's the first time for her that she's been a part of a team, that she's been a part of something that there were more pieces involved than just her. And I can tell you, I mean, I would say that if Christy and I were to go to her and say, we want somebody else to run the cameras for what we're doing this fall, we probably would have a fight on our hands.
Yeah, she actually had her parents cancel a trip to Walt Disney World last year over fall break so that she could work both of the games, because she was that dedicated. And her parents also have bought into the idea of her doing athletics. So she's actually one of the ones who would be on our work-based learning team for next year for athletics.
And Louis, go ahead, Christy.
I was just going to say that as far as the four get paid, but I can have crews as large as 30 at our home games, learning and rotating through so that no kid's having to work the entire game. So technically, you could consider a whole class, but again, if I have a kid that's making less than a B in my class, they are not allowed on our crews.
And let's emphasize the importance of free food.
Yes, Lord Jesus.
We have arranged with several of our fast food restaurants and others, even for our JV games and the training games. I have it arranged with our local Domino's Pizza that I will call them and say, we have a game going on this afternoon. I'd like to order some pizzas to feed the kids, and they bring in 5. Yeah, there you go. If had kids show up just because you're feeding them, they bring 5 large pizzas with drinks, and we feed those kids. And we tell them, you're going to get fed supper for free. Well, for them, free pizza is a big deal. On Friday nights for the varsity games, those kids get to brag to all the other kids that they have Barbaritos, they have Firehouse Subs, they have Wendy's. Help me out here, Christy. They have, where is it?
Zaxby's.
Zaxby's.
We've done Chick-fil-A in the past.
Yeah, Chick-fil-A. Anyway, 4 or 5 different options that they can choose to go have supper for free. And
yeah, I mean, they can even get like a large sub from Firehouse. That's like $11 if you get the meal.
well, and let's shoot straight here. For some of those kids, being able to go out like that and show up with their broadcasting shirt, and the people in that place go, "Oh, okay, broadcasting kid, sure. What do you want?" That's an immediate show of respect that they're not going to get anywhere else. They're just not going to get it. And
some of those kids wouldn't have eaten supper that Friday night had they not been on our cruise. So, Randy, do you want to explain to Sabrina about the letter jackets and what we did in the past? And because we recently just started having them paid by the athletic department.
Oh, and there was something, I'll come to that one second. There was something I wanted to throw back, and I can't remember if it was Lewis or whoever it was about the buy-in thing. Okay, yeah, it was for Lewis. Don't just focus, and this is important. The football stuff for us is a big deal. It is. But the band concerts, the chorus concerts, the drama performances, the middle school concerts and middle school games, all of the things that you can have a kid be a part of, you want them to be a part of. But here's the deal. I encourage you, those broadcasting shirts that we have our kids wear, we buy those. They're like $20, like a polo shirt that's embroidered with their name on it. For years and years and years, we had the kids buy them. And we still ask them to buy them, but we know that some of them can't do it. We know they can't do it. And if we come out of our pocket, or if we ask the principal, or if we ask for help with that, we take care of the ones who can't. But when they go to those events, they're wearing those shirts, they're standing there in front of those mamas and those daddies and those school board members and those principals actively videotaping that event. Now, that doesn't mean that it's a Steven Spielberg production. For most of them, it is not. It's one stationary camera that they're babysitting. But they're there. They're being seen. And in each one of those incidents, that is a different set of our community members who are seeing our kids doing stuff. And I can tell you again, in the school business, if people think you're busy, guess what? You're busy. Now, you may look at it and go, that's just one kid with a camera. I mean, they're not even moving the camera. 99% of the people watching that kid with that camera, they're not going to think that. They're going to think, look at that kid, they're videotaping this chorus concert. And that type of thing is what builds that solidarity up inside your community. So don't think that the football thing is the end all. It's not. It's a big part of it. But the buy-in part comes from being multifaceted and having a bunch of different hands in a bunch of different pots. The letter jacket thing, for many, many years, we paid for that out of our department, but we videotaped our graduations for years and years and years and sold those DVDs at the end of the year as a fundraiser. That was our fundraiser for the year. And all the money that we saved up over that time, excuse me, we used to purchase letter jackets. But now that our kids have become more actively involved in different facets of the athletic department, let's just say the athletic department budget is a little bit bigger than our budget, just a little teeny bit. And because of the involvement of our kids, our athletic director and the athletic department as a whole, absolutely thrilled. And we're not talking a bunch of kids. I mean, like this year, 4, maybe 5, maybe total. And that's about normal. That's about normal. No more than 4 or 5 per year. So you're talking less numbers than you would have probably getting a letter jacket for the swim team. So for the athletic department, it's important enough for them to underpin it. Training for shooting a football game, training materials.
Middle school football games.
What's that?
Middle school football games.
Yeah, we use those lower grade games, James, but there's no risk involved. If they mess a shot up, big whoop. And there's 2 sets of kids working there normally. We normally have a set of kids that will be helping with the coaches' videos, which is that wide angle shot from up top of the press box that hardly ever moves. I mean, honestly, it's just, you just see the field. But for our purposes, we have kids down on the field with a shoulder mount camera that's connected through a cable up through all of our TriCaster stuff to the video board. And those kids are learning how to do those close-up shots that are so difficult to get. And we normally ask some of our advanced students who know how to run that equipment. We'll set up a rotation of them to come to those middle school games and all to help about the running of the equipment. One of us is normally there, but even sometimes then we're not, because the coaches are there, and they've always said, the coaches said, if we're there, we're supervising. So a lot of times we will go and get it set up and have it operational. And then if we've got an advanced student or 2 that we trust to take the ball and run with it, then we'll go on and leave it with them, and then tell the kids just to bring the cameras back with them the next day to school. But it's normally one or 2 cameras max. Where the regular games will have 3 or 4 cameras per game.
Yeah, and typically if we do have to leave for some reason and neither of us can be there, we've also let the assistant principal that is at the game just aware that we're leaving, so that the kids know to go to them if they need anything.
Yeah, but most of the time we're there. I'm just saying that it's set up now to the point where we can if we need to. Let's see.
Hold on, Randy. We do not actually take any time out of our school days to train students for any of the sporting events. So they know and understand that they have to come after school. And again, they do get those community service learning hours to compensate for their time.
But now we use it as part of the lessons in the class. I mean, a camera shot's a camera shot. You know, lead room's lead room. Nose room's nose room. A good close-up's good close-up. So we talk about utilizing the same concepts that we have inside of our classroom lessons with the stuff that they're going to be doing at that stadium, or they're going to be doing at the chorus concert whenever they have a wide shot of the chorus and then a soloist starts and they zoom in and get a good headshot of them. I mean, a good shot, good composition is good composition. So the lessons inside the classroom kind of tie over, and they have an idea, but it's like anything else. Until they get their hands on the camera and actually do it, then they don't really have a clue.
And a lot of the kids like the idea of being on the sideline, but they don't like the idea of running back and forth. So, you know, it just really depends on, you know, if they get hot all the time, they want to be in the press box with me type of a thing. So,
and imagine air conditioning. And we always have more than one kid on the sidelines to help as spotters. I mean, we always have a group of 3 or 4 of them. Of course, sometimes they just scatter like a covey of quail whenever the action's coming on the sidelines and get out of the way and leave the camera guy there to himself. But for the most part, they do a good job helping each other out. And there was one more, let's see, copyright during band concerts or drama productions. That can be an issue. Christy, you want to talk about that? I mean, we just ran into that.
Yeah. With one of our drama performances, we were not able to film their actual performance due to copyright. And the company that the play came from, they wouldn't allow you to do that. But what we did to kind of work around it is we would film their rehearsals leading up to their performance. So as far as band, I don't think we've had really any issues there. But we're not live streaming those events. Those are really just for the directors to have to kind of go over with their students and provide feedback for. Really, it's not anything that we like publicly produce, if that makes sense.
And that's the key to it. Like even with the drama stuff, if that's not going to be put on YouTube, if that's not going to be shared with the community, if it's being used for that teacher to use to critique those kids and as a training part of the educational process inside that classroom, and I realize that the old rules say no videotaping because of copyright. Well, that was under the assumption that that was going to be distributed somehow or another. If it's not going to be distributed, if it's going to be used solely inside the school, it's normally not an issue at all. Let's see what else we got. What do the community service hours apply to?
So we have merit students, and we have National Honor Society students who have to maintain a certain number of service hours each year to keep their eligibility for those different organizations. So their service hours apply to that. But if they get a surplus of hours, those hours go toward a medal that they can receive their senior year for having an outstanding number of community service hours. So they are not fed through our CTSO, and they don't necessarily go toward a letter either. It's a consideration for a letter, but we don't hold it against our students who cannot go to the sporting events. Students who are not involved in that facet could still receive a letterman from us.
Yeah, we've had several students over the years that have just sunk themselves into our classroom stuff that have clearly shown leadership and interest and dedication to the program above and beyond the normal call of duty. But for circumstances that are beyond their control, they're not able to go on those Friday night trips or to go out into the baseball field and that sort of thing. And we understand that. Again, that is not a requirement by any means. Let's see. Any other questions or anything? Well, Tom, I think we've hit our 45-minute point. I don't want to belabor it.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Anybody got anything else they want to ask real quick before we get out of here? Take a couple of seconds to type that out. Again, Randy and Christy, thank you guys so much for this. If you guys aren't familiar with what Randy and Christy do, definitely go check them out. Do you guys share your website, social media, that kind of stuff, so that these guys can go and see what you guys produce in a regular year?
We've got YouTube channel. Facebook has got we've got a broadcasting page for Facebook as well. I'm sorry, I'm fighting allergies. But here's the big deal. If you guys have got questions or issues, or if you want to have like any of your supervisors or anything ask questions about some of the stuff that we've talked about, just email Christy and I. It's easy. Christy is kmaxwell@tcjackets.net. kmaxwell@tcjackets.net. I'm ryoung, tcjackets.net. And we will be more than happy to help you in any way we can.
And more than likely, you will receive a response faster from me. Just making you aware.
Here we go. The young buck throwing shade on the old guy. You know how it works. That's all right.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, guys. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we'll see some of y'all here in just a little bit. And the rest of you, have a great day.
Thank y'all.